Hello there, everybody. I hope you've all had a wonderful work week. So, are you good and well confused about what you should do with generative AI? I mean, it just seems like things are moving so quickly now as we get our minds wrapped around one thing we're supposed to do with Gen AI, well, another thing comes along entirely. Last week, OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, well, they held their first ever developers conference. There were a number of announcements made, including the new, well, as they called it, turbocharged GPT-4. But the biggest announcement is that, well, now you can make your own GPT. Yeah, that's right, your own personal version of ChatGPT to do something specific for you. It exists. So what does this mean for marketers? What does this mean for all of us? What should we be doing right now? Well, want to know our take? This is 5 minutes of what you need to lead in marketing. Let's roll. Hello, everybody. Robert Rose here with the Content and Marketing Strategy News. It is what's new, but yeah, you get the drill by now. It's more importantly, what's important in our world of content and marketing. And for the best and best practices, you can always head on over to contentmarketinginstitute.com. So last week, well, we didn't publish our news last week because it fell on Veterans Day, but I can tell you that the big news that we would have covered was OpenAI's big announcement that their first ever developers conference. But it's probably a good thing that we didn't cover it last week because actually now we've had a chance to dig in and see what's actually going on under the hood here. First, well, here we are. We're almost exactly a year away from the launch of ChatGPT and generative AI as we know it today. In fact, as we record this, we're 13 days away from it being exactly 1 year ago when OpenAI announced the launch of ChatGPT. Now, at that time, we need to remember that what was promised was a chatbot that we could interact with and use in a conversational way. You could ask questions, you could follow up, you could get clarification, ask it to create content for you, all by simply chatting with it in an interface. Now, what's very interesting to me is that in those very early days, the weeks and month basically following the announcement, the very first use cases, well, it was that it would replace chatbots that we're using for customer service, or that it might replace Google search, and that was some of the biggest and most hyped uses of it. Then about 2 weeks in from the announcement, people began to discover that it would actually write content in a specific style if you asked it to. Being only human, of course, we immediately went for the ridiculous, and we started to ask it to do things like explain how to make a peanut butter sandwich in the style of the King James Bible. Or do something like, explain how AI works, but do it as an annoying guy who actually won't continue or won't stop going on tangents. But then we got a little more serious. It was only a few weeks later that people discovered, well, it can actually write really good code or essays or even news stories. Even though the learning model's knowledge only went up through 2021, it could actually report on things. We started to worry as Christmas and January came around that students would use it to cheat, that reporters would become obsolete, that coding would become a dying skill. But then, early in 2023, months after the initial deployment, well, marketing teams began to play with it too, and you could hear a huge collective sigh of fear of companies of all sizes. There was a huge realization that the short-form content that GPT produced, well, it was decent. And we started to see all kinds of new startups that would auto-magically write your copy, your blog post, adjust your SEO, set your persona research, write your landing pages, develop your FAQs, all of it. It could do everything that your content people were doing today. And we worried. Would our jobs disappear? What is going to happen? This is how we've spent the bulk of 2023. And here we are, exactly a year later. And OpenAI is now announcing there are now 100 million weekly users to ChatGPT. And well, the company announced that you now can create your own GPT to fit the specific ways you want to use it. In one of the demos of the custom GPTs, well, they created some customized learning material to provide a creative writing coach. Another one, again, using a limited set of knowledge or learning material would help attendees actually navigate the developers conference that they were at. As a side note, I've been playing with it myself, and I developed a GPT that I'm calling the Content Marketing Companion. It uses the sum of my 4 books plus my classes on content marketing as a custom learning model, and I'm testing it to see how it answers basic questions on content marketing strategy. The results? So far? Pretty good. I mean, not mind-blowing, but pretty good. But the real value seems to lie beyond just giving your custom GPT the ability to chat or access knowledge. It really is in giving your custom GPT agency. In other words, it can now browse a URL, send an email, or integrate with other tools like Zapier or Canva to start to perform different kinds of tasks. So what's our take? Well, there's a reason that I wanted to remind us all of how quickly this is all moving and how we as consumers are still really reeling with the practical uses for generative AI. Our brains want to immediately go for the things that we recognize and try and predict the future. So what we do is that we can see most of the use cases are now quite simplistic because that's where our brains go, like my content marketing companion. In the long run, these kinds of applications will not be the kinds of differentiating things that people will find value in. Anybody can make them. Somehow, someone could have made the one that I just made. Maybe they'd have slightly more difficulty in getting access to my content, but not a lot more difficulty. And they could make their own content marketing companion with my knowledge at the source of it. Because everybody can do it, the answer is probably no one will do it. I mean, we're already seeing use cases and instructionals now on how to build custom GPTs to do SEO or for marketing and automation. The question we have to ask is, what will differentiate those things in the future? Again, the most obvious one for marketing is obviously to think about the entirety of your content repository, your corpus, if you will. And maybe it's 10 years of blog content or the entirety of your customer help documentation or the last 10 years of Twitter posts. All of those things, you could bring access to that knowledge with a custom GPT, very similar to my content marketing companion, but it's content that only you have access to. But my take? Well, there will be truly innovative things that we haven't even begun to envision yet. OpenAI believes this as well, by the way, as at their developers conference, they also announced that they'll be making what is ostensibly an app store for custom GPTs. So what should you be doing right now if you're in a marketing team? Well, if the hundreds, well, make that thousands probably, of original research projects into how marketing teams are starting to utilize generative AI have made one thing particularly clear. It's that, yeah, we're still just playing around with it. We're still trying to figure it out here at the end of 2023. And as my own research that we recently published noted, it's people, not teams, that are doing the experimenting. In other words, with few exceptions, we're not looking how to integrate AI into our workflow, our systems, our business. Not yet. What we're trying to do is still figure out how it makes individuals more productive or their jobs easier. But yeah, that's what we've done with every new technology, including the original ChatGPT a year ago. So my take, as I've said before, for business generative AI, whether it's a custom GPT or using what's available off the shelf or implementing some new custom enterprise bespoke tool, it's a content challenge, not a technology challenge. So play. Yes. Experiment. Yes. Go try out custom GPTs. It is fascinating, but do it in the context of how it makes your business better. Let your imagination be free. Leave the development of the custom GPT, for example, that'll help you learn the Klingon language to, the nerds who are going to nerd out on nerdy things. Oh, by the way, I created that as well. I now have a custom GPT that will teach you Klingon. If you look in the notes, you'll find a link to my Klingon language tutor there. In any event, we need to challenge ourselves, our teams, not to just think about new developments from the view of how do I make my job better, but we need to put on the lens of the opportunities we have to make our business better. And in order to do that, we need standards, guidelines, processes that we already know how to make our business good. Because if we can't answer what makes our strategy or our business good, no amount of customized GPTs or any kind of chat interface is going to make it any better. And well, that's it. Until then, I say, Kapah Dath Je. Success and honor to you. That's 5 minutes of what you need to know in marketing. And remember, it's your story to tell. Customize it yourself and then tell it well.